Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor to discuss the very recent crisis in Bangladesh. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Sreeradha Datta, a scholar who's been in a number of um, institutes and think tanks and has studied this subject very closely for some decades now. Um, it's been the last few days, have been very disturbing, whatever we're hearing. The 77-year-old Sheikh Hasina having to leave at very short notice, flee Bangladesh at very short notice, coming to India, still not certain when she will go to the United Kingdom. Um, Awami League is all obviously, sort of broken down. The attacks on Hindus and temples, which are in full swing. Bangabandhu's statue being desecrated is a very unpleasant sight. The Prime Minister's residence was raided. I mean, so many things which are so disturbing. And Muhammad Yunus and the army chief uh, have said nothing about ensuring that the lives of Hindus and their property are safe. Uh, there's a lot we need to be very careful about. Uh, when for almost 3 decades, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party held power till 2009 almost. There was a very heavy uh, presence of Pakistan's inter-services intelligence, the ISI, and there was a concerted move to try and pump in illegal migrants from Bangladesh. There's a book which I wrote, Assam, Terrorism and the Demographic Challenge. This was released in 2012, by which time there were about 11 districts at least where the demography had changed. Um, there are we share there are states which share borders with Bangladesh. Will have, which will have, they'll have to be careful. The Indian army, the Indian security apparatus for the Northeast will have to be very careful now. Um, I won't take much more. I hand you over to Dr. Sreeradha Datta for much more. Please.
Thank you, Col Anil Bhat. Good to see you after long. Yes, it's extremely a complex and a very difficult phase that is unfolding in Bangladesh. But this evening, I think the Nobel laureate has taken oath as head of the caretaker government or the interim government. And we've been hearing names of some extremely well-known, responsible civil society members who are likely to be part of the interim cabinet. Yes, while you do mention, and I haven't noticed Dr. Yunus mention anything about the minority, but I haven't been tracking that so much. But it's incorrect to say that there has been no reaction about from Bangladesh about the minority attacks. In fact, what we have seen images, and I've heard young students saying about how many of these, even the madrasa students, are guarding the temples just now. There's a constant plea to ensure that Hindus are protected, that there is of course a narrative being built here in terms of how they had to flee their homes, they're coming towards India. Some of it may be true, we haven't seen the images as yet, so it's difficult to see, but I think there is both an misinformation, disinformation going on both sides. So I would be a bit skeptic. I'm never denying that there hasn't been attacks. In fact, even Awami League members have been attacked. But of course, the minority attacks do concern us gravely, and we certainly. I'm hoping that once this interim government takes over, things will settle down. And I do agree with what you're saying. Those images that we saw of Gaurav Bhavan and discretion of Mujib's statue was certainly not something that you looked. It looked pretty to any one of us. But if you recall, the Aragalaya movement that happened in Sri Lanka, a couple of years ago was similar. So I just think it's a heat of the moment and of young youth, whatever. And let's not forget the fact that there are miscreants in every society. And Bangladesh has its share also, but also much of that is a lot of the pent up anger that they've had towards this government. So a reflection of that, and it's fine to say all of this, but let's not forget the kind of repressive measures that the government has applied to many of his civil society members. We in fact getting to see the extrajudicial killing list. We are seeing the disappeared personnel now appearing. So clearly much of what policies and measures that were undertaken by Awami League is now pouring out, and the anger of the people is pretty palpable. While this is not to excuse any of that what is happening there, but I'm very convinced that Bangladeshis in general don't approve of what is happening, and they will ensure that once the interim government is in place, that the law and order, that would be their first priority, to restore law and order.
I think it's heartening to hear from you that there are still at least elements who are trying to guard the Hindus and their temples, etc. It's heartening because from whatever visuals that we were seeing and what we hearing, it was very very disturbing. One is followed Bangladesh right from the time it became Bangladesh. Um, you know,
Uh, if
every
if I
year,
might, if I may just butt in here a little bit, I'm sorry, but I agree the visuals were very disturbing. But why are we ignoring the visuals which came before that, before 5th of August? Why we did
of
not
course, of
react to
course,
those visuals? I did not see a single commentator in India ever talk about it. I'm sorry to say
yes.
this in public
No,
domain.
no,
I think
you're right. You're
I
right.
was screaming horse from 17th July at every platform that I had, saying that this cannot go on, this is not tenable, this is not accountable. But I didn't see a single Indian responsible citizen or commentator talk about those visuals. Those visuals were
Um,
pathetic when you saw unarmed students being bulleted and pelleted down. I mean that's not acceptable
um,
either.
I think I can say I faced the same because there are two I know I won't go into names, but there are two individuals who turned down my request to discuss at a stage where 10 days or more earlier. Um, um, but now, what kind of uh, hopes can we, from Muhammad Yunus and from the army? The army chief sounded very, proper that everything will carry on properly. There will be, peace. There will be law and order. But somehow, having gone experienced uh, uh, an eruption from the in the armed forces set up shortly after Sheikh Hasina took over. Um is a reminder that everything is not been hunky dory as far as uh, the uh, the Bangladesh army is concerned. After all, it is that same army which had very very patriotic people who were who supported the Awami League, but there were as many who did not, and it's such people who at the hands of whom Bangabandhu got killed. So I mean, that's history. But one can one hope now that there is going to be a reasonable improvement in the situation, and what do you think is going to happen to the Awami League? That's Are they going to, now that they, I don't think they're going to say, they're going to sit and take everything. They've lost 29 at least.
Well, to begin with, I would think that, right now it's a student movement. Their influence on this particular interim cabinet is reflective of the nature of personalities who have been included, which is completely apolitical, from various walks of life, from government and, public sector. I didn't notice anyone from the private sector, perhaps, but, it's maybe I don't have the full list with me as yet. But more importantly, I'm not sure what is because we don't know those details, how long they intend to be there. As we know, a caretaker government in its earlier avatar used to be there for 3 months to, assist the election commission for free and fair election. But this is a bit of a different nature. Bangladesh has had elections this January, so I'm not sure how early they can go into elections. But coming back to the Awami point, I mean, I would think that Bangladesh now wants a robust multi-party democratic nation. And it is in that state, they will certainly want Awami League to be participative. It cannot be a one-sided affair, which we've seen in the last 15 years. That is exactly what the students were protesting about. The last 15 years was a one-party rule in Bangladesh, and I'm sure they will not approve of the same. I've just heard one interview, particularly of Dr. Yunus, where he talks about Jamaat being, entering the political landscape, which they always were there. I've, in fact, in one of my books, called them the queen maker because they've always sided with the government,
Yes,
either
yes,
within the
yes.
government or outside. So they're saying that let Jamaat also, Jamaat has never won the more than 5% or 4% votes actually. So I'm quite convinced that Bangladeshis don't want Jamaat per se as a political entity to governing them. But I think what essentially Bangladeshis want now is a level playing field for every single political party. And I'm sure Awami League will also be included in that particular dispensation when that particular thing happens. Right now, of course, as you mentioned, tempers are very high. The misdeeds, if I could say that, of the last few years has taken a toll. And when a particular party is in power and they're ruling the roost, then nobody talks about it. But what has happened, this pressure cooker thing that has now come off, is something that we will see these after effects in Bangladesh. But again, if I've been hearing a lot of these students and their interviews last couple of weeks, I'm super impressed with the maturity, with the moderation that they have, and the kind of vision they present of Bangladesh. I don't think I've even seen any political leader in Bangladesh, either Awami or else any of the other political party, talk about that in such an articulate manner. So I'm very convinced that I think Bangladesh is safe hands. Yes, it's a tumultuous period. It's going to take a while. We don't want to see that kind of violence and what is, right now unfolding there. But again, as I say, and I'm hoping we are all keeping our fingers crossed that things will settle down and we will see a far more democratic nation once again.
Well, it's nice to hear you being, being able to bring out the the potential of uh, a very significant improvement in the situation. And first of all, it beats one's imagination how it came about, because Bangladesh was one country which was doing quite well, compared to we've had um, we have more than our share of problems in this neighborhood with Awami League took over. It was a great relief to India, you know. At least from that point of view, as far as India is concerned, it was a great relief. But it's a pity why, as you brought out, how such um, how things reached a stage where uh, such unfair means got adopted by the Awami League government, and
In the
one can
2008,
only hope that now when you know things uh, start getting okay, they uh, they become okay, because really, I'm extremely, as a military analyst, I'm extremely apprehensive about the kind of trouble we can have at the hands of, if the ranks of Pakistan's ISI start swelling up again, in Bangladesh. It's in fact the ISI which converted the insurgency movements, the purely insurgency movements of the Northeast into terrorist movements, insurgency come terrorism, um, whether it is um, Assam or Manipur or any of the insurgent groups in uh, anything else, Sreeradha, that you'd like to
Uh,
add?
I completely agree about the security concerns that we have, and I'm just hoping again that Pakistan, the Bangladesh that you referred to, which is the phase of 2001 and 2006, when we saw these kind of anti-India activities taking place from Bangladeshi soil, which is very much egged on by Pakistan, and even now there's a lot of narrative about these external players and their hand there. But I do believe that today's Bangladesh is a different Bangladesh. It's not the same 2001 Bangladesh. And also, I think the neighbors, all the neighbors, including Bangladesh, have understood the dividends of working with India. And what would they gain by doing what you're suggesting they would? In fact, in the Northeast also, again, the situation was very different in the Northeast. Today, the only particular element who's the difficult one is Manipur, right? And so I mean, I think we can control our own internal issues ourselves. We have the wherewithal, which we at that point of time is different. Our capacities are different. The security concerns are always abound in the neighborhood. It's not to discount that, but I think that I would expect Bangladesh to understand that it is by working with India they will benefit more. It's a mutually beneficial situation that we now live in. It's a completely integrated economies that we live in, cross-border facilities which are working so fabulously. So essentially, every government wants to deliver for its own people. And I think working with India, the delivery mechanisms are going to be far more robust. And why would Bangladesh not want to do that? Also, being a strong India as a partner is also a counterbalance for the other external players, and not to mention China here. So I don't think Bangladesh would want to lose that advantage of working with India. They want to showcase their partnership with India, because that's also a strong message to the other players, which they also want to capitalize on that. So I think it's a great. I mean, I think the emergent Bangladesh that we see now, and a multi-party Bangladesh with different, political views. This is not to ever discount the kind of support that Sheikh Hasina gave to us. It's true, but at the same time, domestically, the kind of things that took place was clearly something that we didn't ever raise because it was suiting us to work with Sheikh Hasina at that point of time. But the non-democratic practices, the repression that she folded on media and the civil society was something which is completely non-acceptable. So,
That's
but I
an,
hope things
that's
are settled down. And I hope that the new Bangladesh that we see is one Bangladesh which will see the benefit of working with India. That's what I'm looking forward to. And I think the new generation is politically aware, economically conscious. They want better life for themselves. And that will happen only when they work in partnership with us and everybody around them.
no, that you're very right there. We are the one country which it will be very beneficial to Bangladesh to continue economic cooperation without doubt, without doubt. And from whatever you were going to say, I'll say, like they say in Hindi, "Aapke muँh में घी शक्कर." Let this all happen, because it's very important that um, if things get back to uh, and it's a pity that a person like Sheikh Hasina Wajid, took a course which was not really expected of, and the way she's left, maybe it's indicative. Anyway, that's history, but we let's only hope for as far as India Bangladesh relations are concerned, First of all, let there be normalcy in Bangladesh, and let India-Bangladesh relations, come back to as best as possible. Um, Thank you very much, Sreeradha.
Thank you.
Very,
Thank you.
number
Fingers
of things
crossed.
which
I'm
you
very
brought out.
upbeat about this. India's always had a very binary approach to Bangladesh. Hopefully, we will move away from that, and I think we'll be able to work with whichever entity comes elected to Dhaka. I think India is very much ready to work with everyone there. So, looking forward to a far more positive bilateral relation without the other things putting us down.
Thank you very much, Sreeradha. All the best.
Thank you.